Haha! Fresh and fit. Seems like you've done it again. It's good to see you again. Welcome back. What's up, everybody? It's me, back at it with another discussion. Seems like our boys Fresh and Fit, who I covered in a video maybe like 2 months ago, seems like they've gotten themselves in some hot water. And by hot water, I mean like hot, boiling hot dog water. Like, you know, the stuff that, like, no one wants to smell hot dog water that's boiling. They're in that. They're like neck deep in that, you feel me? I was on the internets again, right? And I come across Fresh and Fit in the headlines. But they're not in a beef this time. It's for something they said. It's for their statements regarding black women, right? So peep game. The Shade Room posts a clip of Fresh and Fit a few days ago. And just to give context behind the clip itself, Myron is responding to one of their super chats. And for those of y'all that don't know, if you're not familiar with the podcast, Fresh and Fit have these things called super chats. Basically, it's a section dedicated to people who pay X amount of money to comment on comment during their live stream. Like Myron and Walter, they'll have a specific section within their podcast specifically for super chats, and they'll just read off people who have paid to speak whatever they want to speak on. So it was one of these super chats that Myron was responding to. The super chat was, the question was, do you guys use the app Black, the dating app Black, to court black women? And instead of saying no, or instead of answering it in a more cordial manner, Myron says this.
It's funny, I never used that one, bro. What about the black dating app called Black? Oh, it's funny, I never used that one, bro, but hey, man.
I mean, hey, bro, if you want to date a bunch of Shaniquas, go for it, man.
LaQuisha.
Yeah, like me and Fresh aren't really down with the brown like that. Man. We ain't night riders.
Nah,
so
bro, I'm good.
You know, sometimes if they're, you know, red bone, but like in general, me and Fresh don't dabble in the dark, if you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
Okay.
I know, right? Threw me off too. So yeah, instead of just saying no and moving on with his life, he decides to say what he said. You saw it. He is like, yo, we don't dabble in the darkness that much. If you want to be a night rider, go ahead. And the thing that kind of, the straw that broke the camel's back for me was when he says, if you want to date a bunch of Shaniquas, go ahead. See, when I think it was back to his comment where he said, you know, the whole night rider thing, the dabbling in the darkness, that was just kind of extra for me. I didn't really take that as disrespect. But when he made that Shaniqua comment, I was like, okay. See, now we have a problem. Because this clip has put them in a position to where people think they hate black women, right? It went from preferences to y'all hate black women. And I understand why people made that leap in logic, right? It makes sense. When you use the term Shaniqua, because growing up, the term Shaniqua, that's a term you use to describe like a ghetto black girl, right? Or somebody ghetto, period. Even black people typically don't want to be associated, don't want to be called Shaniqua, especially like a black woman, right? And it's a shame, because I was talking to my mom about it, and she was like, it's a shame, because I know Shaniquas, I've met Shaniquas who are far from ghetto, so the fact that that term has a negative connotation to it is wild. It's kind of how like Karen, the name Karen, didn't have like an aura around it up until like recent years, because now when you think of a Karen, you think of somebody who cries over spilled milk. You think of somebody who yells for the manager at the most minor inconvenience. We all know what a Karen is in today's day and age, right? We know what that term kind of signifies. So for Myron to describe black women as Shaniquas is disrespectful, right? Because, and it's not like he was joking. It's not like he said it in a very joking manner. At least I didn't read it that way. And I don't think most people read it that way either. The way he put it made it seem like, yo, the way he put it, he may as well have just said, I think all black women are ghetto. He used the word Shaniquas, or the term Shaniquas, to describe black women. Shaniqua is typically a name given to a ghetto black person. Well, I won't say typically, but that's kind of the way I perceived it. And then as I thought more about it, and as I saw the clip and I watched more of it, I was just like, I came to the conclusion. It's the thing is, here's the thing, right? Peep game. You can have your preferences, but when you start getting disrespectful, that's when you find yourself in hot dog water like this, boiling hot dog water like this, because he got disrespectful. He said things that he didn't need to, that warranted, that got that type of reaction. What he said made people think that he hates black women, and whether he does or not, I can't speak to that. I personally don't know. But when I watched it, I didn't get the feeling that, oh, he hates black women. I just was like, yo, this guy's just being extra for no reason. Like if he didn't use black to date or court black women, or if he didn't mess with black women, he could have just said that and kept it moving. Like there are plenty of super chats that cycle in and out all the time. So he could have just said no and kept it pushing. But the fact that he harped on it for that long and described it and answered it the way he did, this is a classic case of, for me, it's not what you said, but it's how you said it. So like imagine, there's scenario one, right? He answers the question, he just says no and he moves on. Versus scenario two, where he's like, oh, we don't dabble in darkness. If you want to be a night rider, go ahead. If you want to date Shaniquas, then go ahead. You see where the difference is? When you say certain things and you take it there, you can't therefore turn around and be like, oh, these are my preferences, what's the problem? Because that's exactly what he did, right? There's a separate video where it's him and Walter. They have another podcast. They're doing another episode. They have a whole nother panel of women, some of which are black. He goes on to say, he's like, yo, when women list their preferences, they say they want a man that's tall, they want a man that's dark, they want a man that's handsome, they have to make this amount of money, so on and so forth. No one bats an eye. But when me say I don't mess with black women like that, it's a problem. It's a problem. Everybody's up in arms. Everybody's on my case about it.
Here's the other thing too. When it comes to dating and your personal preferences, no one bats an eye. When women say I want a man that's 6 feet tall, makes a certain amount of money, blah, 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 those are considered preferences. But if I say, hey man, I don't date black girls like that. Oh, God!
You hate black women.
How dare you?
You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous.
My mom's black, your mom's black.
Yeah.
My sister's black, like, bro.
And it's just like, I would be inclined to agree with you if you hadn't gotten disrespectful with it. I would be more inclined to believe you if you hadn't described black women as Shaniquas. My mom's name is Stephanie. My aunt, who's like my second mom, her name is Tiffany. So it's like, just the fact that you can't, and that's why I said before, you can't say stuff like that, then try to backtrack and be like, these are just my preferences. Yeah, I would have liked to believe that, but now I and everybody else, well, I don't really think that, but now you got everybody thinking that it's something that probably isn't. Because do you hate black women? I can't speak on that personally. From what I gathered from the video, again, I don't think that was him straight up stating that I hate black women. But at the same time, because he took it to where he did, and he answered the question in the way that he answered it, I can believe how people would jump to that conclusion. And then another thing that he said in the clip, he said that he was like, yo, if I had said I don't date Latinas or I don't date Asian women, this will not be a thing. He's basically saying that if you replaced black women with any other race, he wouldn't have had this reaction. But because it's black women and there's a whole separate issue with that, this is why I'm catching flack for it. See, and that's not exactly the case, right? Honestly, if he had said no and answered that question with a little bit more respect, maybe he would have gotten a little bit of flack for it, because black women, in all avenues of life, I want to say, with dating, corporate America, just any avenue you can think of, black women are constantly overlooked, undervalued, and just kind of cast aside, even by black men. So if he had gotten a little bit of pushback for that, I would have understood it. But because he said what he said, it makes his case indefensible, right? You can't defend or justify him calling black women Shaniquas and saying that we don't dabble in darkness, and his whole Knight Rider comment. You can't defend that. Had he dialed it back and just said no and left it at that, then yeah, you can probably get by with saying that. But because you got disrespectful, you can't say that. And my thing is, even if you did replace black women with Latina, Asian, or whatever, insert race here, right? Even if you did replace black women with whatever race you wanted to, it's just what you said after. If you used like let's say he's talking about Latina women. If you used any type of term, a derogatory term for Latina women, and you said that, you'd have gotten the same response. If you were talking about how I don't date Asian women and you used a derogatory or negative term to describe Asian women, you would have gotten the same response. You see what I'm getting at, right? My main assertion for this video is not what you said, but it's how you said it. To the point where you can't be like, if it was a different race, I wouldn't have gotten this pushback. You probably still would have, because replace black women with any other race, combined with the disrespectful comments you made about said race, you would have gotten the same response regardless, right? And then another thing, they're also in hot water for another incident regarding Asian Doll, who you may or may not know. I think she does music. I'm not too familiar with her myself. What I do know is that she messed with the late King Von. Rest in peace. She was dealing with King Von that back in the day, and she was on their podcast, and she walked out because of. That's a whole separate issue. I wanted to focus on the first issue for this video, because I have my own thoughts on that, right? That are kind of separate. But because Myron and Walter, actually, I kept saying Myron like it was just him. No, because Myron and Walter, fresh and fit, because they said what they said, it's just a bad look in general. Now they gotta walk around with the fact that people think that they hate black women. Then they have black women on their podcast, so every interaction that they have, good or bad with black women, people are gonna be nitpicking, right? And I think that's what happened with this issue. It was Asian Doll and one of the woman on the panel, she was a black woman. They were having a separate conversation. And the thing is with podcasting, because there's so many different mics and everything gets picked up, you can't have separate conversations. Like you have to have, for good podcasting, you have to have one person talking at a time in order for podcasting to work. But because this woman, who just happened to be a black woman, right? Because this woman was having a sidebar conversation, and according to what Myron said, she had been doing that throughout the entire podcast. So she had been a repeat offender. Then this is the woman Asian Doll was talking to. She had been a repeat offender. So Myron gets on her case about it, and then Asian Doll proceeds to chime in and is like, yo, like, why are you doing all this? She calls him mean, right? Like, she says what she says. Myron, they have a brief back and forth, and it's whatever. Myron is about to move on until Asian Doll kind of speaks under her breath and says something, and then that's when they have their whole debate and their whole back and forth to the point where Asian Doll leaves. And in my head, I'm like, well, yo, Asian Doll kind of stepped out of, she was kind of like a little bit out of pocket in my eyes. But you can't even do that anymore, because you got this whole fresh and fit hate black woman thing in the air now. So that's like a default reason that everybody can go to now, even when they might be in the right, which sounds even weird to say. Even with them potentially being in the right, people are always going to go back to, nah, they're doing X, Y, and Z because they hate black women. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to speak on this one. I thought it's crazy how small instances can kind of lead to kind of like a greater thing. Like, I feel like this fresh and fit incident was more of like a microcosm of sorts. I don't know if I use that word correctly, but I'm gonna go with it, right? But yeah, it's just crazy how they keep finding themselves in situations. First it was Abner and Preach, then it was, I think, then something may have happened down the line, which I didn't really pay that much attention to, but now it's this. So like, honestly, I don't want to be on some drama alert type of deal where I'm following Fresh and Fit's every move and just waiting for them to slip up. I don't want to be the channel that's always waiting to catch people lacking, right? But this one, because I was raised by a black woman. Black male role models in my life have been scarce up until this point. I did feel strongly about this. I felt strongly about him referring to black women as Shaniquas. I felt strongly about just this whole ordeal in general. But yeah, if you made it this far, appreciate it as always. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Just let me know something. Like, if you mess with me, let me know that. You feel me? But yeah, without further ado, till next time. See y'all around.